Hey guys, and welcome to today's live, or welcome back to the channel. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you guys are having a good Friday. It's Friday the 13th. Look at that. It's Friday the 13th. Has anything spooky happened to you yet? Nothing spooky has happened to me yet, but I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting on like Nancy to scare me or something. So welcome in. If this is your first time in the chat, my name is Tanya or TitaniumBuilt. Welcome. If you're a returning Titan or subscriber, welcome on back for yet another live. We're going to do it big today. We're going to talk about Charlotte Sena. Yeah, TGIF for sure. Oh, that's different color. Whenever they update things, I swear they don't tell us. So like whenever I come onto StreamYard or something, things will be different, and I'm like, oh, that's different. They just switched the way the banners are in the live now, it looks like. So cool. Awesome. Something to look forward to. So like I said, I'm Titanium or Tanya. If you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, we'll go ahead and get started with today's live. We may do a night live too. I'm not sure. And hey, Jan, how are you doing? And Alicia, it's really early there. Sorry about that. I didn't realize the time. 5:47 a.m. Wow. Well, we're getting you up bright and early, you know. How many more days do you have there? She's over in Japan. That's so exciting. If you're not a channel member and you'd like to become one, I'll put it in the chat and I'll put it throughout the live. That way, if you guys decide you want to join, you can become a member of our channel. It's a great way to support the channel, and it's a great way just to get in on the fun, you know, members only lives and all that good stuff. Oh, Jan, I'm sorry, man. I thought maybe you come in here today and say, I'm doing great today. I don't like when people don't feel good. I need to go. Actually, I got my flu shot, but I need to go just get like all my shots just to make sure. Because, you know, you never know. You never know. You don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick because then I won't be around you guys. Because if I'm sick, I won't be able to come live. You know, that wouldn't be fun. Which knock on wood really hard. Since my car accident 10 years ago, I have not been physically like ill. And like where I was sick for like longer than a day or something, you know, like I might have had a little bug, but nothing to where it was like the flu or a cold or anything. So I've been really lucky. So I'm thankful for that. But we'll go ahead and get into tonight's live. If you're watching on a replay, don't forget to hashtag Charlotte Sena in the comments below, or just hashtag replay, whichever you guys prefer. So last week we went over the case of Charlotte. Let me grab her, put this up here so we can see what she looks like. But this is my timeline. But there's a little picture of her on there. She's the little girl from upstate New York that went on a bike ride with a couple of friends at a campground that her and her family were staying at, and she was kidnapped. When we found out about it, we were like right on it. We wanted to make sure we could get her name out there and get her known. It was, I think, like the internet broke when this little girl went missing that night. So there's an update in the case. So we'll go over the timeline of events. We'll go over the suspect, Craig Ross Jr., and we'll see who he is as a person. And then we'll go over Nancy Grace's new video that she put out over Charlotte. So we'll go ahead and start with this timeline first. I wish it was a little bit bigger. I should have made the writing a little bit bigger for you guys. I don't know why. I don't know why I do this test where we all have to be like trying to look at it. But if this started on Saturday, September the 30th, I can't believe it's been that long already. It doesn't seem like time goes that fast where like, I don't know, I guess time flies. 6:15 p.m. Charlotte Sena goes for a bike ride around Loop A at the Moru Lake State Park. That's where she was staying out with her family. At 6:45 p.m., Charlotte's parents, Trisha and David Sena, report her missing when she doesn't return from the bike ride. And at 7 p.m., they have the state police arrived at Moru Lake State Park. So her parents didn't waste any time in reporting her missing, which, you know, was really good on their part. Now, if they would have got the Amber Alert out a little bit earlier, that would have been nice. But they did get it out, and I find it clever. This is why I'm not a cop, because this is like kind of like common sense, I guess you would say. But for them to go sit on her house, like where she wasn't even there, like he had kidnapped her from a state park. Like I wouldn't have thought to go back to her home and like sit on that house too. Like, you know what I mean? I would have just been like sitting on the the campsite and looking at that. So, I mean, good thing that they did those things because he was a dummy and he put a ransom note into the mailbox with his fingerprint on it. But Sunday, October the 1st at 9:36 a.m., an Amber Alert is activated saying Charlotte was abducted and in serious danger. New York State Police Trooper Stephanie O'Neill confirmed Charlotte's bike was found to WNYT after other local news outlets reported. So at 1:30 p.m., Governor, I can't say her last name, but I think it's Hochul, holds a press conference with members of law enforcement saying we are leaving no stone, no branch, no table, no cabin unturned, untouched, unexamined in our search to find Charlotte. And then that's when we started seeing the press release. Then on Monday, October the 2nd at 8:57 a.m., the Corinth Central School District sends an email to media outlets saying the district has mobilized its crisis team to help the school community during this difficult time. Our hearts go out to the Sena family, said Superintendent Dr. Mark Stratton. And then that's their whole family there. Adorable family. Adorable family. They look so young too. Her parents, they look like they're my age, you know? That's terrifying. 2:20 p.m. Trooper O'Neill tells WNYT that there's no press conference is planned as crews continue to focus on finding Charlotte. And then at 4 p.m. that day, another update from state police says there are approximately 400 certified search and rescue personnel active searching for Charlotte. This remains a continuous 24-hour operation, and all received tips and information are being followed up on. The people in this community are strong and we support one another. We are asking our community to come together today to help Charlotte and her family. And then at 6:45 p.m., news is announced that Charlotte has been found alive and is safe. And then this is where she was found. Man, I couldn't imagine being in there, like in a cabinet. Oh, my Lordy. Oh, thank you. Be happy. Welcome in. Thank you for the $2 super sticker. That's really sweet. Thank you. So yeah, this is the mobile home or camper, I guess you would call it, that they found her in. I'm wondering what these things are in the back. I don't know what that is, but I'm curious to know now. And we did get a picture of the CSI is going in to collect evidence, gather evidence. We did get a picture of that. So then at 10:30 p.m., because we thought it was going to be the next day, they were going to hold a press conference, but then they decided to go ahead and hold that press conference that night. Governor Kathy Hochul holds a press conference to discuss the details of how Charlotte Sena was found and thanking law enforcement. And I did get to see that. I was I think we just got off the live. And then this is Craig Nelson Ross Jr. That's the guy. Oh my God. That's so scary. Like, he's a scary looking dude. He is a big dude. He is just as big as Rex Heuermann. He's just as big. Imagine when we talk about Rex Heuermann and I say, I can't imagine being those girls, those little, girls. And those were women. Like they were really like, they were grown women, but I was like, they're so small compared to him. Just imagine being Charlotte Sena's size compared to him. Oh my Lord have mercy. Actually, you know what? I usually remember this. I think it was 90 pounds, like 5 foot or something. 5 foot, 90 pounds, wasn't it? 4'6", 90 pounds. Okay. So, my gosh, could you imagine you're only 4'6", 90 pounds, and you're standing next to a guy that's like 6'5", 6'6", 275. She probably didn't know what to do in that situation. That's so scary. But I wanted to read this to you guys. It just says like what we know about the suspect who kidnapped Charlotte Sena. Hey, Jesus loves me. Welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. I don't know if I said hi to ALR, but if I didn't, hi. I'm like, I can't remember. Was that today or yesterday? So this is Charlotte here. A 9-year-old girl was taken from her family during a camping trip in upstate New York this weekend, was found safe on Monday, and a suspect in her disappearance has been arrested. Often these stories don't end up like this, said Governor Kathy Hochul in a press conference on Monday, describing the return of Charlotte Sena to her family in good health. Hochul also described the dramatic effort to find Sena and arrest the suspect, Craig Nelson Ross Jr., who has been charged with first-degree kidnapping and allegedly tried to get a ransom payment in exchange for her return. Below is everything we know about Sena's abduction, the investigation to get her home, and the suspect who allegedly took her from her family. So I've been reading that her grandfather, I guess, came into some money after a lawsuit. I'm talking like a couple $1 million. And so they're saying maybe Craig Ross knew about that money. Could you imagine if like her and her little sister, if they were like riding those bikes together, he would probably just grab both of them. Oh my Lord, man. So the abduction, it says, on Saturday night, Sena's family was camping at Moreau Lake State Park, about 35 miles north of Albany and about 12 miles from her family's home in Greenfield, New York. Sena was riding her bike around a campsite loop with other children. She decided to take another lap by herself and never returned. Man. The odds of her doing that. Like, was he watching her for a long time? I mean, that's weird. You know, like the odds of Charlotte riding her bike around that loop is probably like, I mean, she probably does that all the time. But for her to say, I'm going to go by myself away from her friends, that's, man, she probably never did that before. Her mother called 911 after finding Sena's bike around 6:45. Authorities issued an Amber Alert on Sunday, and State Police Lieutenant Colonel Richard Mazzone said that it was quite possible that an abduction had taken place. Over 400 law enforcement officials, including forest rangers, police officers, and the FBI, were mobilized in the search. According to Governor Hochul, the Sena family remained at the campsite over the weekend, awaiting Charlotte's possible return. While at their home in Greenfield, police watched from a distance to see if anyone appeared. Around 4:20 a.m. on Monday, officers saw a man leave a note in the Sena mailbox. In court filings on Tuesday, prosecutors alleged that the note was a ransom letter with the intent to compel the payment of monies. The contents of the note have not been revealed. Investigators then pulled fingerprints from the message and found a match with the suspect, Craig Nelson Ross Jr., who was arrested for drunk driving in 1999. Law enforcement officials traced Nelson to a double-wide trailer behind his mother's mobile home in Milton, New York, about 30 minutes away from the state park Sena was taken from. I didn't realize he was that far away. So that means she had to ride with him for 30 minutes in a vehicle too. Like he didn't just like lock her up in the cabinet and, you know, walk away from her. Like, oh man. It says 2 SWAT teams entered the trailer where Sena was found inside a cabinet. She knew she was being rescued. Oh, she knew that she was in safe hands. According to state police, Ross initially resisted the SWAT teams entering his trailer and experienced minor injuries during the arrest. Yeah, we saw his face or his head. The suspect that has been charged on Tuesday, Ross was arraigned at the Milton County Court and charged with kidnapping. New York State Police stated that he was reprimanded to Saratoga County Correctional Facility without bail. In the Monday press conference, Governor Hochul said that Ross's motivations were still unclear. It is not known at this time whether he knew her or had her under surveillance for any length of time. Yeah, he did. And it's because, I mean, how's he going to know? Like her family would have any money. In a statement on Tuesday, the Sena family said that they were thrilled that she is home, and we understand that the outcome is not what every family gets. No. Yeah, he's 6'4". Sorry, I thought he was a little bit taller, but he's 6'4", like 275. Still, like, wow, that's so much taller. Oh, that's okay, Amber. You're here though. You made it just in time. Hey, Jen. Hey, Jennifer. Welcome in. My belly just growled. Sorry. I don't know if you guys heard that in the mic, but it's just like growled on me. Oh, and to let everyone know, if you were here the last couple streams when I was having camera difficulties, We think we figured the problem out. It was a StreamYard update. It like it's a thing that if you do, like if I were to put my fingers up, like to do like thumbs, it was supposed to like do this emoji for me. Like, I don't know, but we didn't want it, but because it was messing up the camera. So Vincent figured it out. I forgot the live yesterday because that's what he does. He figures things out. I love that. So we shouldn't have any camera problems anymore. So it wasn't me hitting the desk or anything or the cords. It was StreamYard. They just did an update. So I'm going to go ahead and play Nancy Grace's new video so we can kind of all learn together what this is. As the kidnapped suspect possibly connected to 2 teen murders. And she talks with Chris McDonough, Nancy Grace does. And it says they're going to discuss the possible connection between Charlotte Sena's kidnapper, Craig Ross Jr., and 2 teens missing and end from the same neighborhood 20 years ago. Just last month, Ross was also investigated after a 12-year-old family member reported that Ross SA'd her. Was the possible ransom Ross's only motivation for kidnapping 9-year-old Charlotte, or could have been much more sinister intentions? I think that there could have been more sinister intentions. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this, and let me share it with you. And if you guys don't mind, just take a second, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet and you would like to. We'd love to have you. And thank you guys all for being here today. Also, you can't see Nancy right now, but let me remove this. She's got her scarf on. Hey, Reba, welcome in. She's got her little scarf on. I put it on her yesterday. It's staying, but I don't know if I could dress her up, though. I was going to try to dress her up. Oh, look at this. I can actually do this now. Look at that. I couldn't do that before. Yeah, that's a cool update. Okay. Because it used to be you guys gifted memberships. Thank you, by the way, Be Happy, for gifting a membership. And I couldn't ever highlight those. Cool. Awesome. I love that. Okay. I like that kind of an update. So let me go ahead and play this for us here, and I'll be in the chat with you guys.
9-year-old Charlotte Sena, Sena. Miracle. Really, that's the big headline for me. Charlotte Sena, this gorgeous little 9-year-old girl, is camping with her mom and dad and family and friends at an upstate New York campground, Lake Moreau State Park. And I've got to tell you, when she went missing, it sent chills down my spine because the scenario was one I have lived out many, many times. You guys know I love to camp. I love the outdoors. We camp, we fish, we RV. And we recently took the children from Atlanta all the way out to the Grand Tetons and stopped everywhere in between. Every RV park, we had John David's bike, sometimes strapped to the RV and sometimes in the RV with us, crammed between the seats. Every RV park, he would get his bike out and go round and around and around the RV park. And I would get out because, I didn't know any of the RV people there. Never seen them before, and I'll never see them again. And I'm sure they were all wonderful, but I didn't know who they were. So I would get out and try to jog behind him. Of course, he would get away from me, and then he'd kind of loop back around. Charlotte had been riding her bike with her little friends, again, 9 years old. And she said, I'm just going to take one more loop. It was about a third of a mile. And 15 minutes later, they knew Charlotte was gone. They then found her bike that had been abandoned in the middle of the road, a highway down a grassy hill and through the trees, and her helmet gone. Miracle, Charlotte Sena was found alive, stuffed into a cabinet of a camper of a man who had set up the camper behind his mother's home. His name, Craig Nelson Ross Jr. Joining me right now, a name you know well, all of you legal eagles and crime sleuths, Chris McDonough. Director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, has investigated over 300 homicide scenes. You can find him at coldcasefoundation.org. Now, I found him at the genesis of the Brian Kohberger investigation, where the University of Idaho students were slaughtered, some believe, in their own beds. And I found Chris in the interview room because he, I think his wife, were in a car and they drove very slowly all through the area. And it was, as you might imagine, San Francisco with the hills and the turnarounds and the hairpin curves and the houses right on the street where you could barely imagine two cars getting through. And of course, there was snow, so much thick ice and snow. And he got in his car, and either he or his wife set up a cam, and he would talk as the car drove very slowly. And he'd go, okay, now we're taking a left turn onto King Road. And he would and he'd point out everything. I felt like I was there. And that sufficed until I could get on a plane and get out there and see it for myself. And that is how I found Chris McDonough. Chris, thank you for being with us from the interview room. I know you're in the middle of teaching a whole, I guess, classroom full of investigators and detectives right now in connecting cases. And that's what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about Craig Nelson Ross Jr. and what you think about this case and his potential links to 3 other cases, 2 cold cases and another little girl that about a year ago, age 12, claimed he assaulted her, and that case was dropped. Analyze.
Nancy, number one, thank you always for inviting me. I'm so grateful. And you and I have been in this business for quite some time from the field to the courtroom. And I think this particular case with Mr. Ross and, of course, with Charlotte being recovered, I mean, what a miracle, number one, that she was recovered.
PTL, Chris. Praise the Lord.
Amen. Seriously, I mean, there was definitely divine intervention there. Because statistically, you and I both know that statistically within 3 hours of an abduction, there's a high probability that the life of that child starts to go in the opposite direction of hope. And so what we need to look at in
why
these
is
other...
that? Is it because, I mean, of course, I'm not a shrink. I'm just a trial lawyer, and we're talking about stranger on stranger abductions, not, parents are having a custody fight and mommy runs off with the baby. Not that. Stranger on stranger, which this is. I think that as an armchair shrink, that the perp sees the child as a sex object, not as a child. And then after the attack on the child, that child is nothing but evidence that has to be gotten rid of.
That is exactly 1,000% correct. And so
is that a thing? 1,000%. Not 100
today.
Not 200, but 1,000% correct. Okay, good. Okay.
You are 1,000%, Nancy, on that one as others. But in this particular situation, what we have to take into consideration, number one, that day, and what I think a lot of folks forget is this individual had gone into this problem with this idea of, okay, I have a plan here, and I'm going to execute this plan.
He did have a plan, Chris. He did, because that's played out by the facts, because she was with the other 2 or 3 other little girls, I think, and they were going round and round. The one time she goes around by herself on a third of a mile in a circle, she gets snatched. So he had to be lying in wait, as I say, like a jackal, for the right moment to snag her as his prey and put her in a car, because, Chris McDonough, the dogs couldn't pick up a scent, which means she was put in a car right there. She wasn't taken off into the woods. She didn't go wander to a lake and fall in. They lost the scent right there where the bite was.
Yes. And
I have a question. why didn't he take the bike with him? Like, that probably would have helped him in the long run if he would have just taken the bike and threw it in the car too. But maybe she was kicking and screaming. I don't know. I mean, but he had to have been lying in wait for her. He had to have been watching when they were going around with the other, like, I thought it was a little boy and little girl, but maybe it was two little girls. For the fact that when she went to make that loop by herself, there would have only been one opportunity for him to grab her. He would have only been standing in one spot. He couldn't be like over here and over there to grab her. Do you know what I mean? So she would have had to have went like by him. And he didn't know that she was going to go on that loop by herself. So was he going to grab all three of those kids, or was he just going to grab her, even if she was with the other kids still? Because like that's just I got questions. Got questions, Nancy.
So that tells us a tremendous amount from an investigative analysis place, right? Where investigators, when these things first happen, you really have to make a tremendous amount of decisions quickly. So in this case, like you just said, you've got the bicycle there, the dog scent disappears at the bicycle. So obviously the first thing that comes into play, which came into play, is there an automobile involved here? Is there something, is there a mode of transport? And if so, that tells us the familiarity in relationship to the suspect possibly, i.e. he or she at that time, which it's a he today, Mr. Ross. Everybody needs to be within a 5-mile geographic, maybe even 15-mile geographic region, taken a look at, and then you start to extend out. And in this case, it was a little bit further out. And then what the investigators did in this particular problem, and then we can go back to the first question that you asked in the beginning about the other girl, is you have to create like an L, and it's called a victim continuum.
Oh, wait, now hold on. I'm going to
Yes.
have to start taking notes. For a moment ago, I thought, do I need to write that down? Now I know I should have been writing notes. Victim, what, continuum?
It's called the victim risk continuum.
Oh, okay.
VRC.
Victim risk. Now I get it. Hey, I just wanted to tell you, the other little girl was 12 and reportedly was related to him, to Craig Nelson Ross Jr. in some way. Don't know how. Could have been a niece, could have been a cousin, could have been, I don't know what. I know she's 12. And somehow, by blood or by marriage, or as I like to say, by divorce, you get related to all sorts of people. And somehow she was related to him. We're understanding, which is a whole nother can of worms. But still, young girl, 12 years old. That's all I need to know. Go ahead.
And so with this victim risk continuum, what you do is you make a vertical line on the left side and then a horizontal line on the bottom. And on the left side, you put the environment, situation, circumstance. And on the right side, on the bottom, on the vertical line or horizontal line, you go high or low, medium, high risk. And the behavior of the victim will tell us a lot about the perpetrator. And here's an example. So in this particular case, the environment is this park, the environment, situation, the circumstance. She's riding her bicycle in this park, supervised by her parents. So then investigators go to the bottom and they say, is that a low, medium, or high risk activity?
I would put that as low. Only because, Chris, that's within eyesight. If you look at the layout, there are campers around. It looks to be like a grassy area, and then with the loop around that. So you can see her as she goes around. Everybody was out there. It was still daylight, grilling out, and all the children out there playing together. Now, if my daughter went on a walk and she was going to go on an hour walk, I would put that as medium risk because it's a neighborhood, a suburban area, low crime, which doesn't always mean anything, but big factor, she would be out of my eyesight. I couldn't see her. That's like letting your child go to the mall. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying if I'm going to rate it low, medium, high, I would have put Charlotte in low risk because that's within eyesight of the parents. And of course,
I would
letting your
agree with
child
you.
walk around, a fair or a busy, congested area where there are thousands and thousands of people, that would be high risk. Like, let's just pretend I let my daughter walk from, I don't know, 15th and 3rd in New York, all the way up to Central Park, around the park and back. Very high risk.
And there would be some variance and factors that would, kind of move that variance towards the high risk even and back and forth. And that would, of course, be, the time of day, the crimes, environment, et cetera, et cetera. So, but with children, and in this situation here, so you have a child who says, "Mommy, I want to go around one more time like a big girl around the park." Okay? And prior to that, she was with a group of children. So from the perspective of this continuum for law enforcement, if everything is on the left side, i.e. in a low risk, okay, there is a higher probability the suspect has seen the child in a previous type of crossing at some sort. Okay? If it's a high risk scenario, i.e., the child is riding their bicycle home from school on a deserted country road, nobody knows where the child is, et cetera, but that the child's coming home, that means there's a higher probability a total stranger is a victim of opportunity. So the lower risk would tell us a stranger and or somebody has come into the environment of that child in the past, i.e. that person has either seen, heard, or read something about that child. And
you're so right. You're so right, because now we are learning, you're hearing Chris McDonough from the Cold Case Foundation. We now know that this guy, Craig Nelson Ross Jr., had a house in his name 1/8 of a mile from Charlotte's family home in that neighborhood, Lake Monroe State Park, maybe 30 minutes away. So he was familiar with her neighborhood, and many have wondered, had she ever seen him in the neighborhood, just, standing around or walking around. And I believe his children, or some of them did, his adult children, live in that house, and he has moved into a camper behind his mother's house. So long story short, we also know that Charlotte's grandfather had a horrible sledding accident, like a snow sled, and got about a $2 million settlement out of that, and it was in the newspaper. We also know that this idiot, and I feel okay saying that about Craig Nelson Ross Jr., took a ransom note. What did he want? $50,000? Is that what he wanted? He wanted 50 grand, and he put it in the Sena family mailbox at about 4:20 a.m. I guess thinking, hey, the grandfather got that settlement. Now they can get the money and give it to me, and they'll get their daughter back. I mean, so yes, he had to have been stalking her in order to snatch her at that precise moment. There's no way he was just driving by and in that 1 minute saw there's a little girl. He was watching her. Now we know he's got a neighborhood connection and probably knows about that money settlement. Was this a money motive? But let me just throw a wrench in the works. When cops got there and they find Charlotte crammed into a cabinet in a camper, she's about 5 feet tall, crammed into a cabinet. You ever been in a camper? The cabinets are like this big. He had on his underwear. I don't even want to think about that, but was there a sex motive as well? I don't know. Okay, jump back in.
Definitely indicator towards that, and that is a huge red flag. as you have pointed out, Nancy. And so in this particular situation, so if we think about what the cops were thinking that moment, as they circled up, as you know, what we used to call it, right? Everybody get in a circle and we discuss, okay, what do we have here? The first conversations that take place is this victim risk continuum conversation. And everybody looks around and says, okay, what's our environment, situation, circumstance? And they measure it quickly, hopefully, within, because you really are running against the clock. You have about 3 hours statistically, as we've mentioned. So in this case, they're probably thinking, okay, well, we've got all of this stuff coming here. So do we A, put an Amber Alert out right away, or B, do we put a missing child alert out right away? Because all the indications are somebody in the environment around this family and or potentially the community knows who this kid is, knows who this child is. So
right.
that, in my opinion, that's why it took a day.
So you thought at the beginning it was a local. I did too, but I didn't know why. You just laid it out to me why. Hey, can I ask you about Jennifer Hammond and Christina White? Jennifer Hammond, 18, Christina White, 19. If you look at their pictures, particularly Jennifer Hammond, but actually also Christina White. Jennifer Hammond has the same coloring as Charlotte Sena. Christina White has a lot of the same facial features. I see the similarity. And, you know, just for instance, look at Ted Bundy's victims. So many of them were pale, white, petite victims, dark hair parted in the middle, long. If you look at Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, and I believe the Butcher of Manorville, a lot of his victims were very petite, tiny women. A lot of them look similar in build as well. So very often you see a connection in the way the victims look, the way they appear physically, or where the perp finds the victims, like in Long Island serial killer, he found them all online, or found a lot of them online. Here, the 12-year-old little relative was in the neighborhood, we think. Charlotte Sena was in the neighborhood, and these two were in the neighborhood. Either that neighborhood or his mother's neighborhood. See what I mean? The MO, the finding the victim, the physical appearance of the victim, the manner of approaching the victim. If it's similar, then we may have a serial predator here. I don't know that there's a connection yet. That's why I'm going to talk to you about it.
You know, definitely the similarities in relationship to, you know, how they look, right? That always that always applies towards, you know, the fantasy base of an individual selecting what we call, and you know more than anybody as well, it's called victimology, right? And so there's a whole process that investigators go through to say, okay, you know, do they look alike? Do they, you know, are they the same age? And this is why it's critical then to go back to that the victim risk continuum, Nancy, because now we have to ask ourselves, what was the 12-year-old doing that day? What was the, I think they're 16 or 19, 18 and 19?
One 18, one 19.
Okay, so what was the 18-year-old doing that day? And what was the 19-year-old doing when she disappeared? So yes, there could be some similar threads through all three or all four of the cases, but now we have to really say, okay, where is an investigator going to go?
Wait a minute. Yep. I actually think it was Jennifer Hammond. She's the one selling the magazines. Door to door. Yes, at that time, people still did that. And she was dropped off at a trailer park.
Yep. High risk, low risk, right?
And as you know, he had a high risk. You're meeting one stranger after the next, after the next. His mom had a trailer. He was living in a camper. And this girl go missing. She goes missing selling magazines in a trailer park near where they lived. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one. So her body was found dumped in rural Greenfields, New York, not too far by.
And so you and I both agree that is a high risk activity just to start randomly.
Oh, I got to tell you something else. Another similarity.
Yep.
Her remains, her skull was found near Lake Desolation Road. Remember, Charlotte goes missing at Lake Moreau State Park. And this woman, this young teen's skull found near Lake Desolation Road.
Okay, so we've got this situation now. Let's take this young victim who was knocking on doors. And so that's a very high risk. So she, as you and I agree, she swings way over to the right because now that opens her up to anything possible out there. And so that means, registered sex offenders. That means, just criminals that have been out of prison or jail, recently. And the list just goes on and on. You put these guys away
Chris.
for many years. Yep.
Both of the victims, Jennifer Hammond and Christina White, both vanished near trailer parks, both found in the deep woods of upstate New York, which is where Lake Moreau campground is.
And that's important. That's huge information to know. And so the thing I would want to know is because, I would want to sit down with Mr. Ross and say, tell me about your habit patterns. Tell me about what you do when you wake up. Tell me about how you drive. Why do you go to these particular areas? And that's what we call a suspect. Suspectology is what it's called. We want to know intimate details about that individual. And I call this, as I'm teaching this class here, intimacy. I want them to see into that individual's life, that suspect's life, right down to how do you tie your doggone shoes in the morning, okay? Because that behavior, okay, and how they do that has been learned. And that learning behavior can give us a predictive analysis as to what the next possibilities could be. Do we eliminate him? Do we keep him in the circle? Do we take him out of the circle? Do we just put him over here on the side? Okay? And in these types of cases like this, where you have two similar body dumps, two children, God bless the families, and
two teens,
so sad.
One 12-year-old, and now Charlotte, still trying to determine if he's connected to the two teens. Don't know that yet. And their bodies were skeletonized, so we're not going to get any DNA. But we may get something else, maybe some DNA on their clothing if there was any clothing left.
Yes, but we have two projections of motive here, right? He's standing there in his own underwear with the 9-year-old and sending a note simultaneously about, hey, I need all this money. So I would submit at this time as well, I would take the other two cases, the 18 and the 19-year-old, and just kind of say, you know what, I cannot say definitively right now if this guy's involved. However, we need to go back and take a look at when he was 27. I think he's 47 now. So this was 20 years ago on the first one.
Yes.
And then 2 years after that.
What do you make of it being 20 years ago? Do you think that has any impact? Because I don't.
Well, it does actually, Nancy. I think it does.
Disagree because I had a guy named Walter Gates. Mm-hmm. He was in his 60s when I prosecuted him for double child molestation on a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old girl. And I looked back, he had been beating and raping his extended relatives. He had, I forgot how many, 20 plus natural children, he said on the stand on cross-examination. A lot of those were girls, and that's who he would rape. I found his adult victims. He had been raping and sodomizing his own daughters and stepdaughters for 30 years. So it didn't matter.
Right. No, but this is where we're going here with that thought process. Is you have this guy who's in his 20s, and you have to say to yourself, okay, if he's killed both of these victims in his 20s, that means you got to go back another 10 years before that, when he was 17, and look at his development in relationship to criminal activity, because that criminal activity pushed forward to where he made a decision to kill his first victim.
So what do you make of the financial motive? I mean, it's real. There are some reports that he may have made Charlotte herself write the ransom note, but that does not mean he didn't have an initial sexual motive, because if if the little 12-year-old girl's telling the truth, he's not getting a ransom out of her. So if that was a sex-related attack, now he's got a 9-year-old in his grips. I mean, it's sex-related.
It is. And well, it could be, yes. High probability. I'm going to go with a 90% right now that that's the motive here for him, but not necessarily discounting the fact that he's also not the sharpest tool in the shed by putting that note into the mailbox at 2:00 in the morning,
4:20,
or 4:00 in the morning, 4:20 in the morning, and saying, "Hey, I need your money here,"
and
right?
leaving his fingerprint on it.
Yeah, don't you love America? I mean,
I do.
You know,
I
these
do
guys,
love America.
These guys are not, you know, they're job security, but it's sad because
apparently, according to a girlfriend, this guy had never worked a lick in his life. He did not want to work. Yeah. He mooched off everybody around him. This is from his ex-girlfriend. So maybe he's smarter than we're giving him credit for, because you and I get up at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning and start working. Not him. Okay. So who's smart? Yep. We'll see. You're hearing the voice of my colleague, my friend, Chris McDonough. You can find him on YouTube on the Interview Room. Chris, we will wait and see as the case unfolds. Goodbye, friend.
I don't know who started that rumor that he was the mailman, but I don't know where that came from, because I don't know. But when I heard that, I was like, there is no way that guy is holding down a job. Like, I mean, no offense to him or anything, but take offense to it, buddy. You look a little crazy in the eyes. He looks like dopey almost, like, not, I mean, I guess you can even put him, I mean, with like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, he looks like just real dopey. His eyes do. They look real droopy, and I think he's on something. And I also heard that Charlotte, that he did make Charlotte write it, but I don't know who said that for sure. But I did read that or hear that in a couple different places. And if that's the case, that's terrible. That's terrible. She's 9 years old. I wonder if you could even wonder what you could spell at 9. I don't even know if you could spell kidnapping or ransom. I don't know. I can't remember how I could spell it at that age. I mean, I read a lot back then. I still read a lot, but not like as I used to. I used to read a whole lot, but I still do, actually, because for the channel, I read a lot. It's more true crime now. It was actually true crime then. Never mind. Never mind. But that's all I do have for you. Let me see. I think that tomorrow we're going to do Caitlin Armstrong. She's getting ready to go on trial, and I've heard of the story. Like, I've heard of her case before, but I need a big refresher. But she tried to escape out of custody the other day, and somebody sent me an email and asked me to cover this story, this case. And I can't remember who sent me the email now. I'm gonna have to go back and look and see who sent that, because I'm going to cover it. But I thought it was a good case, and I forgot about it. I completely forgot about it until she tried to escape. So, well, so if that's my mailman, I'm picking my mail up from the post office, right? When I worked at the mall, the guy there was kind of creepy looking. He was kind of creepy, but it was just like he was dopey too. Actually, he hated life. He was having the worst day every day. So. Yeah. But like BTK, yep, you're probably right. Yeah, you're right. Yes. Wonder what his new name's going to be. He's got a long one. We could just shorten that up. What? CRG? Craig Ross. I don't know. We can make an acronym from him or something. But that is all I have for you for today. I might come back on tonight. You never know, because I'm a little crazy sometimes like that, and I get a little something in me, and I'm like, hey, let's do another live. I'm trying to think if there's anything that's like, oh, okay. Actually, I want to tell you guys about this case really quick, because this is like really, really, really crazy. And I can't find any more information on it. So if you guys have any information on this case, her name is Melissa Davis. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we get off here, because this is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you so much. Be happy for the super sticker. That's so kind. Thank you. $1.99. Thank you. I'll be going to get the cat some treats. He'll like that. So I heard this last night, and I don't know. I can't find the clip, and maybe it was News Nation. I don't think I read it, but I cannot find a clip. I can't even find like a clip anywhere really of this case, but there are a couple news articles out. But this was just published on the 10th. So maybe people will, get up to date with us. If not, we'll just cover as much as we can on one of our lives. Maybe we'll do it on Sunday. But it says mystery surrounds death of woman found burned alive off Texas roadside with butcher knife nearby. So this girl was found in a subdivision, like a residential, I'm not on camera, residential area. And she was found with a butcher knife nearby, and she was burnt to death. That's my fear of oh my gosh, if you have to go out of one way, I would not want to be burnt. So I'm gonna be watching this case super I'm watching this case. So her name's Melissa Davis, like I said. I think it's down in Texas. Let me see. Yep, Texas. Okay, so Texas, yep. And it was found by firefighters on September 29th. They were just called for a fire. She was on fire. Oh, thank you, Jan. Thank you for the super sticker. That's so sweet. Thank you. BTK took too long to say. Yeah, it's true. So those are 2 new cases we'll be covering. I'm trying to think of anything else I need to tell you guys. Oh, and then there is from the Austin Police Department, but there's really nothing else. I'm going to try to get the police reports and stuff like that. So maybe that will help us, kind of figure out what's going on. And then there's a small Ruby Frank update, just nothing huge, but we'll cover that in one of our upcoming lives as well. So I will see you guys all later. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good weekend if I don't see you. Don't forget to like the video if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys all in the next live. Bye, guys.